Hello and welcome to today's web seminar, a roadmap to health benefits for independent contractors, brought to you by Cline University with special guest speaker Hazen Mertz. Before we begin, a little bit about the technology we'll be using today. All of your lines have been muted for the duration of the web seminar. However, you can enter any inquiries that you have via the question box or chat box, and we'll queue them up for the conclusion of the presentation. You can also slide the GoToWebinar box closed by clicking the orange arrow or double arrow, but do not click the black X or you will exit the web seminar. Now, without further ado, please welcome Hazen Mertz, the President of Enrollment First and a subject matter expert regarding benefits for independent contractors. Hazen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And audience, thank you all for your time today. I'd like to get into what we'd like to cover, focusing on important dates that affect individuals underneath the new Affordable Care Act, understanding the changes in the healthcare system and the way we access it, the actual access point through exchanges, utilizing subsidies, or remaining on the private market in the individual major medical. And then we'll cover enrollment first, and then ultimately end up with some great question and answers. So first, January 1st, 2014, the law requires everyone to have health insurance, that is a U.S. citizen, or pay a tax. On March 31st, 2014 is the last day for an independent contractor or any individual not covered under health care to receive major medical before a blackout period begins for all major medical carriers. Enrollment will reopen in October 2014. So let's dive into the basics. The Affordable Care Act, known as Healthcare Reform, was passed March 23rd, 2010. And its focus was to make health care available to all Americans. What that really then changes, though, is how do we get our health insurance, what we pay for our health insurance, and then ultimately, who's going to pay for it. So beginning January 1st, 2014, as I mentioned, every American under the new law is to have health insurance. So the current statistics, where do you get your health care now? Currently, individuals buy their own. None, just under 1 in 10, may still not have coverage at all. So we opened our doors 11 years ago this month, serving and providing health insurance solutions for the often considered ineligible and underinsured market. So really, what is the new taxation and how does that affect us? Well, ultimately, it's called the individual mandate. If you choose not to buy your health insurance, you have to pay a penalty or a fee. What are those penalties? In 2014, the penalty is $95 for each adult, $47.50 for each dependent. Now, they come with some maximums, and that maximum is $285 for a family or 1% of your household income, whichever is greater. In 2015, the penalty goes up to $325 for each adult and $162.50 for each dependent, or $975 family, 2% of household income. Now, you must enroll and be enrolled by March 15th to qualify for not having to pay the taxation. So let's really break down what those options are. So in today's current market, you'll see that we have the individual major medical on the bottom of the screen. That's the current marketplace that we all understand that you could access prior to the new law. That marketplace was proven and tried in all 50 states. The companies had underwriting to get into the coverage, and so you had to qualify for coverage, and they had certain parameters that they built their programs on. Now, due to healthcare reform, you must include all wellness and preventative. The programs must be guarantee issue, and so you will see a lot of changes. That also changes the premium of the programs because they're covering more services. It also changes the access to it, where in yesterday's market, we had a lot of independent contractors that would not qualify for major medical, and it wasn't a viable option due to their current health conditions. So let's talk about the new program that's the exchange. The exchange is the marketplace, if you will, that will be calling the marketplace that the government has put in place for where you could access health care. It is also where you can utilize a subsidy. So the exchange is not the private individual major medical. The exchange program is where tax dollars and health care programs are being put together in one marketplace to deliver those to Americans. And then a subsidy. A subsidy is where you are able to get a discount to use through the exchange to purchase your income, to purchase your health insurance based on your income. In a few slides, we will be getting into what those subsidies look like, what you qualify for based on income and household size, and break that down even further. So we call it the Exchange Incentive Summary. For those Americans that are between 133% and 400% of the federal poverty level, they are eligible for an affordable, and are not eligible for an affordable employer-sponsored plan, then they will be eligible for a subsidy. And so these are the statistics where the government has put a percentage on a income level for a household deemed as the federal poverty level to identify what their subsidy would be for. Ultimately, from a consulting firm, 46% of uninsured adults and 40% of those with individual coverage will be eligible for federal subsidies. We'll get into some statistics here where even a family of $92,000 of annual income for their household will still be eligible for a subsidy. So inside the exchange, which is the marketplace that you can go and qualify and apply for a subsidy, there are 4 plan designs. You've probably heard of these as called the precious metals. These plans are guarantee issue and being referenced as the gold and the silver and the platinum. If you go through the exchange or directly to an exchange or with a subsidy to an exchange, you must pay all premiums direct, whether it be through bank draft or credit card. The exchange programs, to reduce cost, also have built their networks on HMO plans, so you must have a primary physician to go to a specialist doctor, whether it be an allergist or even an orthopedic doctor. They also have fewer doctors, so they have a smaller zone. And the reason that they've done that also is to reduce cost to the plan. They have less benefit options. They have 4 plan designs, as I've mentioned earlier. And ultimately then, these plans are being built on the Medicare payment schedule. And so within the Medicare payment schedule, there's already a reduction of claim dollars available to the doctor for services provided. And so that is another way that they're able to reduce the cost of the insurance, but also by reducing the doctors that take the insurance. So the exchange is definitely a new way to purchase insurance. It's meant to set up so that people can find plans that are based on the standards that the federal government has put forward. Every state's marketplace will be deemed based on that state. Each state gets to pick and choose whether or not they play in their own state exchange or join the federal exchange, and that they can then offer the insurance to the citizens of that geographical area. Let's talk about the subsidy. The subsidy is defined as financial assistance to get to health care. A subsidy's true definition is called an advanced earned income tax credit. So if in today's market we have a client who is opting to look at a subsidy, then we also advise them that they are waiving their advanced earned income tax credit. And so on the following year's taxes, they will not be able to claim that because that is what is utilized to actually fund their subsidy. You must disclose if you're self-employed to get a subsidy. Because the only way that you qualify for a subsidy is based on if you are offered group health at an employer, and then if you are offered group health from an employer, it must meet a minimum value and it must be affordable. And the definition of those two, minimum value is defined that the government says that it must be 60% actuarial value, and the affordable is that it must not cost you more than 9.5% of your income. So with independent contractors, neither one of those qualify, and so to outline in a federal document for them to get a subsidy, they must disclose their self-employed or an independent contractor. The individual subsidy is based on their modified adjusted gross income. So the MAGI, as we refer to it, is your taxable income plus half of your self-employment tax added back, different from the adjusted gross income. So let's talk about that exchange incentive summary. This would be a definition, and we'll get into what do the federal poverty numbers translate to. But you can see here where for 133 to 150% of federal poverty level, they will only pay 3 to 4% of their income for their health insurance. Individuals who don't qualify for a subsidy can still enroll in an exchange program just without a subsidy or without a discount, if you will. With that, they would be accepting the smaller network and the HMO practices within that exchange program. The majority of our independent contractors who are not opting for a subsidy are opting for the individual major medical in the private market so that they can remain to pick their PPO network and pick and choose their co-pays and deductibles where there's more flexibility there still. So what is that number of federal poverty level? There you can see the 133% of FPL for an individual is $15,000 a year. Then you can see where that goes up rapidly to define what is 400% of federal poverty level. On the right, you'll see what will they pay. So you can see for someone who makes $28,000 a year will pay 8% of their income, and for their individual coverage would equal $2,315. With independent contractors, they write off a lot of expenses. And so their MAGI is quite reduced compared to what a lot of drivers would make from a gross standpoint. And so a lot of the independent contractor model does qualify for a subsidy. So just as a quick review, so we can identify what states went with a federal exchange, and so they are under the federal rules of plan designs and cost. They're also within them for the financial resources. You can see the green states that have chosen to build their own, and they felt that they could build their own profitable model from offering out subsidies and offering out the exchange program to enroll enough people to make it financially stable. So let's talk about the private market and the individual major medical. As mentioned before, it's guaranteed acceptance as of January 1st, 2014. They're required to cover you whether you had problems or not with no pre-X. They are going to continue in their marketplace to sell programs just directly to the marketplace through their brokerage distribution, just like they did before. They also can then apply to be on exchanges. And so the majority, as an example, the majority of Blue Cross Blue Shields nationally have chosen to get on exchanges in those state marketplaces or on the federal. And so you could have a company that's doing both. They're still selling on the private market individual major medical, and they've built the program onto the exchange for subsidized health care. So we also advise our clients that currently have major medical to renew that major medical prior to now so that they could get their coverage to extend one more year. Because everyone's coverage will go up in expenses due to now covering 100% of your wellness and preventative. Another caveat to the law says that your maximum deductible can only be $6,350. And so if you previously had a plan that had a higher deductible than that, that program will be going away. We'll also remind everyone of the blackout dates ahead. Just like you would envision Medicare, all insurance marketplaces for individual major medical through exchange or through the private market will have blackout dates between April 1st and September 30th. And this is because of it now being guarantee issue, they are closing the plan down and only opening during open enrollment windows. That follows a similar standard with Medicare. The only way to purchase health care in that period would be due to a change in status from being an employee and moving to independent contractor status and losing those benefits, COBRA coverage running out, and spouse losing her coverage. And so there's a multitude of reasons for you to be able to get into the coverage during that time period, but you'll have to be able to prove that change in status. So let's talk about a prime example of someone making $29,000 a year. With a family, the individual mandate penalty would be 1% of their income, which would be $290. To buy from an exchange would be 8% of their income, using $23.15 per year in cost. Individual major medical in this scenario, using a 35-old male non-smoker, would be $3,800 per year. And so there is a threshold for where an individual could save money utilizing a subsidy in the exchange versus paying for their major medical premium 100% themselves. So to talk just a little bit about Enrollment First and who we are a firm that's been open 11 years to deliver independent contractor benefits, to separate them from the motor carrier and utilizing an association model so that they can purchase their benefits on a group platform away from an employer-employee relationship. Building all those custom marketing material and communications customized to the opportunity and the client. We also have salaried licensed agents. Those salaried licensed agents are because we're not just for enrollment or selling insurance. We also then service that client and that driver for the long haul. For the lifespan of their policy, we're their customer service entity Monday through Friday, 11 hours a day. We also control the consolidated billing so that we can take all of their product options and compile them into one option, into one deduction. That also remains true if someone chooses individual major medical on the private market. We're capable of billing independent contractors in 44 states for their health care on a list bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mertz, for that very interesting and informative presentation. And we'll now shift into the question and answer session of the web seminar. If you could, please advance to the next slide. We have a very large audience today who asked many, many questions, and we won't be able to get to all of them. So if you have any additional inquiries, please reach out to our speaker today, Mr. Hazen Mertz, whose phone number and email address are on the screen, or to Cline Wood, whose Cline Wood University sponsored today's web seminar. Their email, phone number, and website are also on the screen. And with that, we'll now get into our first question. Can you explain the blackout period in greater detail?
Sure, thank you. So let's actually back up 1 second and talk about the actual enrollment cutoff dates. So the enrollment cutoff date to enroll in any major medical program is the 15th of the month prior to its effective date. So if you were to use March 15th for April 1st coverage, that would be your cutoff. And so currently the government has said they're going to leave open enrollment open until the end of March. Well, that will only work if you enroll by March 15th. You can't actually enroll on March 30th and still get an April 1st effective date. So in all theory and by calendaring, if you wait till March 30th to enroll, you will not get an April 1. You'll get a May 1 effective date. And so you would be out of compliance for 1 month for taxation purposes. The blackout period is being locked down so that individuals can't get sick and immediately pick up major medical guarantee issue to cover their claims. And so by doing that, they're creating a blackout window where they're forcing individuals who want to make the decision now and want to take care of that, whether it be the taxation responsibility or they want to take care of their health care needs, they're creating that blackout unless you have a change in status. As mentioned before, whether it's your spouse is losing coverage, you are coming off a COBRA plan that you've had for 6 months from a previous employer, any of those things that we would consider. We also, birth, death, divorce, all of those components will play in, and you will be able then, with those change in statuses, to be able to enroll in coverage during that time period.
Thank you. The next question we have is, can you review the extension and cutoff date of February 14th for getting into the exchanges?
Yes, another great question. So the government, roughly 3 weeks ago, came out due to the healthcare.gov website having volume issues or having issues where too many people were logging onto it and it was not working. And so the government made an extension of 6 weeks for you to purchase health care. Previously, the rule was that you must enroll by February 14th for a March 1st effective date. And so they gave a 6-week expansion, 6-week extension for you to get into your health care and not be taxed. So as I was discussing on the last question, that's really only a 4-week extension because you must enroll on the 15th prior to the following month. So that would be the extension to March 15th for you to be able to get an April 1st effective date.
And the last question we'll take today is, can Enrollment First help me enroll in an exchange or only help me purchase private insurance plans?
Enrollment First can help you to enroll in an exchange with or without a subsidy. Enrollment First can help you enroll in individual major medical on the private healthcare market as well. The Enrollment First is certified and licensed in all 50 states to sell subsidies. Currently, until January 1st, those subsidies must be done on paper, and so we work with the client, we quote it, we get them their subsidy numbers, and then we work with them to get their paperwork in as we actually do the paperwork for them, provide it to them to review and authorize, and then we get it submitted for them. The marketplace will change January 1st as the government has locked it down. The only place you can electronically enroll for a subsidy currently is through healthcare.gov. And so that's where we can provide that service to do that on paper. As of January 1st, we'll be able to do it on a electronic basis and be able to do it for them right there over the telephone and estimate their subsidy and enroll them in the program right there in a one phone call system.
Great. Well, thank you very much once again, Hazen, for that excellent and informative presentation. And we'd like to again thank today's very large audience for attending today's web seminar. We hope that you'll be looking for future web seminars sponsored by Cline University. Anybody who would like more information or would like to ask additional questions or would like to request a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, please reach out to Mr. Mertz or to Clinewood University. Contact information is on the screen. With that, today's web seminar is now ending. We hope you all have a great day.